can't see when somebody's on, so you gotta let me know.
Our kiddos won't be too loud. How many viewers do you get?
Active when we're live, anywhere from 9 to 15.
Great.
We don't get too many, but a lot of people watch the replays. We average about 400.
That's great.
Some are more, some are less. But is somebody logged on?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Me and Tony.
Hello, Tony. All right, good evening and welcome to Journeys with Judy. This is not Dr. Dave. Dr. Dave had a family commitment that he had forgotten about. So Dr. Angela Merrick gracefully jumped in and took the slot for us. So we are here in York, PA at her home, in her office, to do an interview with her. Before we get started though, I want to address our community. Last night, Lloyd Runkle asked me to reach out to our community for prayers and love and healing for his wife Leslie, and I for one am overwhelmed with the outpouring of love and support and healing prayers that have been sent her way and to the family and friends, and I just wanted to thank you all for that support. It means the world to them and it means the world to me. So she is my sister of soul, just as Jen feels she is her sister of soul, and our sister was in dire need of help, and you all extended your hands and your hearts. And we are grateful, so thank you. And now we'll get started. So,
Beautiful.
thank you for having us in your home.
Yeah, and the craziness of life.
It's very active here. We have kids and dogs, and it's perfect. That's love.
There's so much love in life.
You know, life is loud and messy, and that's what
and
makes
a little
it good.
crazy sprinkled in there
Exactly.
too.
That's what makes it good. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. And if you've watched the show, very basic to start. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Elmira, New York, outside of Corning, where they make glass and all that stuff. And when I was 2, we moved to Texas, where I lived there until I was 8.
Where in Texas?
Just outside of Austin in Temple.
Oh.
So I lived there and had the southern drawl and, listened to country music. And then my dad got a job transfer up to Fairport, New York, which is outside of Rochester. And I found out very quickly that Oak Ridge Boys was not popular and having a southern accent was not cool in upstate New York. So I quickly lost the accent and started listening to Madonna and Michael Jackson.
Okay. A big switch.
And that's where I stayed there until I went off to college.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up in York, PA?
Oh my gosh, that's a really long story. But it was when I graduated from chiropractic school. It was my my first husband Josh's parents lived here, and that's where he was raised. And my father-in-law had a job opportunity that he went to a chiropractor, and they said they were looking for an associate, and I applied for the job, got it, and we moved here 15 years ago in 2003.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Excellent. Do you have any siblings?
I have one. I have a brother.
Is he older or younger?
He is younger.
Oh. And is he local?
No, he lives in Ashburn, Virginia.
Okay.
He's actually he just is part of a startup where they are helping people in Kenya raise a crop out there called pyrethrum, which helps with organic pesticide farming. It's an ingredient that can be used for that, and he's helping farmers grow that and then sell it on the open market.
That's really cool.
So it's going to help Kenya in a potentially very big way.
Wow.
So that's where he's been focusing. He's got 4 girls, so I have 4 nieces.
Excellent.
Well, actually 5. I have a niece from the other side of the family, but he's got 4 girls, so he's busy, and his wife is a saint.
Okay, so you're close.
Yes, we are.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Okay. How would you describe your childhood?
It was good. I had a lot of, a lot of good support around me. My parents always supported whatever I did for the most part. I mean, there were definitely, I was raised in a strict environment, I will say, so there was definitely some challenges in that realm, but my parents always surrounded my brother and I with love and constant follow up and follow through. So there was nothing we could do that they wouldn't eventually find out. For sure.
Okay. The village would report back?
Oh, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
My mom was a teacher, so, in the district that we lived in. So that was unfortunate. No.
You could get away with
No,
nothing.
I couldn't get it, so I just made sure I just didn't. So I was definitely, I was a bit of a nerd, and when I was young, and got called a brain a lot. So being blonde, I decided to just start acting like a blonde at times so that I wouldn't get made fun of. So I had a little bit of that just when I was younger, but and then over time I started to embrace that. So, but yeah, it was good. I was, in sports, I was kind of awkward, and actually I was really shy until about 8th or 9th grade, and started to come out of my shell. And I used to do gymnastics, and then diving was something I enjoyed doing, and I played the oboe for 8 years, kind of a random thing, in band. So I was a band geek.
It's not an easy instrument.
I was a band geek and an athlete, and then, but I worked really hard, and then went off to college.
And you were smart, and at some point you decided that being smart and blonde was okay.
It was okay.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
definitely
good.
Embraced it.
What is your fondest childhood memory?
I guess there's a couple. So one was really going with it was what we did in the summertime. My family, we had a boat. So we would go and spend 2 weeks at a cottage my parents would rent. And we would go water skiing and tubing, and we would stay at a place that had no TV, really no phones, right? This is before really, we had the cell phone, the massive thing you put in your car. But,
hello.
Yeah, exactly. Hello. So, but it was really just going out on the water and, skiing and messing around with, my brother, my parents. Sometimes we'd have a friend, and that was absolutely incredible.
Nice. Being out in nature.
Yeah.
Nice.
Without electronics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My daughter, for one, I don't know what she would do without her phone.
No, and that's a constant conversation with today's generation.
A constant debate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Often. Mm-hmm.
What did you find challenging for you as a child? You mentioned that you got picked on for being smart.
Mm-hmm.
So, was that elementary school?
That was elementary school,
Okay.
for sure, yeah.
And by the time you hit middle school,
middle
did
school,
you embrace it?
I started to embrace it, and,
Okay.
and certainly in high school. My challenge for myself is I was a perfectionist and a massive people pleaser.
Okay.
So I never really learned how to think for myself because I was so worried about what everybody else thought. So I like to say that I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Nice.
I still have relapses. But it is something that I found was a really powerful, I didn't realize how much it had power over me until much later in life, but recognizing many areas where that happened. And in full disclosure too, I definitely struggled when I was around in 5th grade with an eating disorder. So wanting to control something in my life, and that's how I showed up. And so struggled through that, but then eventually went through, saw different treatments and things like that, and was able to heal through that as well.
Well, how long did that last?
It was really bad for probably a summer, and then it was definitely something that was a theme for probably 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the 80s. Yeah, it was just as a young woman who's still figuring out who she was and the body she was growing into, and I was bigger than most. Believe it, I was like the biggest kid in my class initially, or one of the biggest. I just stopped growing in 7th grade, and everybody else kept going. So there was just a lot of that, mind drama that I carried, in my adolescent mind that didn't always have the most healthy outlook.
That's very common.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately too common, right? Having a daughter, that's
exactly.
something to be mindful
Something
of
that
for
struggles.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. So, teenage years. What about young adult?
As far as struggles,
Challenges. You went off to college.
I went off to college.
What was challenging there?
So, when I was in high school, I was, big fish, small pond, right? So, graduated, well and strong, and went off to college. I went to Cornell, and was completely overwhelmed my first semester. First of all, I was off on my own, having to make decisions for myself that I had never made before, and an environment I had never been in before. So trying to figure out how to, manage that whole scene from partying to studying and everything in between. It was hard. That first semester was really hard. I struggled. In fact, I did, not the eating disorder came back, but I definitely struggled with eating, and I lost weight, and I lost my self-confidence because I felt everybody else was smarter than me.
Okay.
And I didn't feel good about myself that first semester.
So you went from being picked on for being smart to then not feeling
smart enough.
Wow.
Yeah. And at the end of that first semester is when I met Josh, my first husband.
Okay.
And I'm so glad I met him when I did, because he helped stabilize me in a time when I was an emotional, needy co-ed, like, oh my gosh, all the things that we say to girls don't do. I did.
It worked out for you.
Oh my gosh. I was calling, his fraternity all the time, like, where is he? Like, I was that girl.
Did that last all through college?
It lasted most of college.
Really?
And I finally let it go, and man, that was empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that took some more growth.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And when I went away to college, I didn't go far. I was just down I lived in Maryland, and I went to Salisbury. But it was one of those things where I couldn't believe my parents actually left me there. Because same thing, you're making decisions on your own, and you're doing, what are you talking about?
Wait, yeah.
2 weeks into it, I met my best friend, and it was like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do in college. Yeah. And then my grades came, and my father was like, never again. I got like a 1.9 that first straight C's. He was like, I don't pay for straight C's. Yeah. You're gonna get it together, or you're coming home. Okay.
And that's such a huge thing.
It is a huge thing. How do you balance all of that? So.
Because it's one thing when you're in the environment of your parents' home and you have the structure of it, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I get to create my own structure? Where do I start?
And the parental expectation, well, that wasn't there.
Right.
It wasn't in your face every day. So I was like, wow.
Exactly.
Once I hit my stride, I hit it pretty good. So that whole second semester was learning the balance.
Yeah, and figuring out, because, I think it's also, as a young 18, 19, go out and experience life, right? Do the stupid stuff. Yes. But hopefully not too far stupid that you don't really hurt yourself permanently. But we did that stuff, and then coming back and coming full circle and figuring out, okay, well, yeah, that's right for me. That's not right for me.
That didn't work out so well. And thank goodness we did not have cell phones to videotape it or picture it or any of that. I say that to my daughter all the time. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you live, because somebody's going to have it recorded somewhere.
Yes, and that'll come back when you run for president.
Exactly. It'll come out.
Right, the Supreme Court or whatever.
All right, what do you find challenging now?
So now, as I'm starting a new business, it's having the belief in doing the thought work that, okay, I can do this. The other thing too is I am now in a blended family, which is something I had never thought I would be in. So there's a lot of variables that I never experienced before, but I have something different than I did 20 years ago. Is I have life experience, and I know I have the grit inside of me that I can get through anything. Nice. And thankfully I have an incredible support system that is also cheering me on through this transition to this next phase.
I would say you have the confidence today that you didn't have back then.
Oh yeah. And it's not, and that confidence doesn't come from approval from others.
No.
And it did before.
And
it was very superficial.
A complete difference.
Very, because then you're much more secure in who you are, and you won't get rocked. I was reading. I love reading, and I love doing all kinds of mindset work. Like, that is just my massive passion. Hence the reason why I am now a life coach. But I was reading about a man by the name of Viktor Frankl, who he went through the he went through World War II and was in the concentration camps in Auschwitz and lost people close to him. And he actually was the founder of logotherapy and different types of psychology after that, because he was able to find peace within himself in the most dire of human conditions. And I find that so fascinating that it didn't matter what happened around him, he knew he was still okay here.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I just am fascinated by that. And then if we know we're okay on the inside, in our heart and our soul, which we are ultimately, right? We just have all the layers of stories and crap that we live.
Exactly.
Yes, that all the beliefs that don't serve us are still there. That it is such an empowering way to stand. To stand in your light.
Yeah. I love that. What jobs have you had to this point? We know that you're a chiropractor. What did you do? Did you get a job in high school? Did you work through college?
So my first job was, I babysat, but I worked for Burger King, making $4.35 an hour when I was 16, and then I was a lifeguard for a number of years. I loved swimming. I loved diving. That was my thing in high school and college, and so I actually was a diving coach while I was in college for a little while. I also started teaching jazzercise at the end of college when I got out of diving.
That's right.
That was always, I had the thumb leotard. Oh my God.
Leg warmers.
I don't know who thought that was ever a good look. But nonetheless, no, I didn't have leg warmers.
Damn that Olivia and John.
Oh my gosh. So I taught jazzercise, and then, but then I decided to, go to chiropractic school. Actually, right before that, I went through a training program, retail management training, right out of college, because I wasn't sure where I was going to go after that, if I wanted to go into physical therapy or be pre-med, med school, or go in something else. I became a retail management trainee for Sears in Chicago.
Oh.
So that lasted 8 months.
I was going to say, I don't think that lasted very long.
That was terrible.
It was terrible. It was awful.
It was a great, so one thing that I really have learned to appreciate is people that work in retail in the fourth quarter of the year. I'm always like celebrating them and appreciating them because I know how hard it is and how awful it is. So I just always want to like honor them for what they do, because that is not fun at that time of year. But anyway, so I got that out. That was a good lesson, right?
Yeah, that's a very good lesson.
So, and then I went on to that, decided I wanted to be a chiropractor, so went through that process and, got my degree in 2003 and came to York and practiced. And now, so on the side of doing that, I've also been continuing to do, not jazzercise anymore. I teach other health fitness classes.
Say, you teach something at the JCC,
I
right?
teach at the JCC. It's called GRIT, which is a high intensity interval training class for 30 minutes. So lots of fun.
Now, is that all age levels?
So it's adults,
okay.
But yeah, I mean, I have some late 20s to 60-year-old in my class. So
did you ever make your kids go through it?
Carter's done it with me.
Yeah,
my 11-year-old. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. So he's actually pretty good about it. Justin just rolls his eyes at me, and my stepson's like, no. Yeah,
Justin the giant.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll keep working on them. Yeah, we've grown big at our house. So those are my jobs, and now shifting into my new role as a life coach.
Excellent. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
A little more later. What inspired you to become a chiropractor?
I was always interested in nutrition and exercise, and I originally thought I wanted to be a pediatrician when I was in high school. And when I went to college, and Josh and I were, talking, I remember him saying, Angie, if you go to med school, like, you may not sleep much and you need your sleep, and you might, like, he started kind of picturing, painting this picture of like, it didn't sound so good. And I'm like, man, maybe that's really not right for me. So when I went to Chicago in this retail management training program, I was taking a class, an exercise class, and the instructor was a man who happened to be a chiropractor.
Oh.
And we ended up talking afterwards, and he wasn't hitting on me, but he started asking me like, hey, what do you do? And for whatever reason, we just had a conversation, and he invited me to come to his chiropractic office on my days off from work. And I'm like, okay. So I went, and he was helping people without having to use drugs and surgery, and that just really resonated with me. And what I found out too is that as a chiropractor, people could come right to us. They didn't have to go through their medical doctor to come through us. Whereas as a physical therapist at that time, you had to go through your medical doctor. There was a lot more control or barriers in that way of getting access to seeing people directly. I felt like there was a lot more autonomy available to me as a chiropractor, so that's what I decided to invest in. So 3 months after I met him, I was enrolled in school in Iowa.
In Iowa? Okay, so you've been around.
Been around a little bit.
Iowa.
Yeah.
Well, there's not much to do in Iowa.
Which is good, because it allowed me to focus on my studying.
Right.
So I was a total dork. I went in dork mode again. And I was out there. My goal was to graduate top of my class.
And?
Because I did. Which I thought was like going to make you a better chiropractor. So what I learned
Another lesson.
I learned that I knew nothing when I got out of school. It doesn't matter how much you know it theoretically, but when I got out of school and I had a patient sitting in front of me that had all these different challenges, and I was like, oh, what do I do?
What do I do now?
I was very glad I did not start out on my own in my own practice. I was glad I worked with other chiropractors.
That's funny. I was a teacher, and it was the same thing. You go through student teaching and you do all that. The bottom line is those kids still have to answer to that lead teacher, so they're going to behave for you. Right. When I was out on my own, I was like,
oh my gosh,
what do I do?
Don't eat me alive.
Exactly. And I started in middle school. You know how brutal that can be.
Well, my husband teaches middle and high school. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would lose my mind. We're raising middle school right now.
Yes, you are. Okay, now this is a question I wrote out and prepared. In your practice, have you only been concerned with misalignments of joints and disorders of the muscular skeletal system, or do you see chiropractic as an alternative complementary medicine that can be used to treat the entire patient, mind, body, soul?
I would say the latter, except one other caveat. I don't like to use the word medicine. Because we're not medical doctors, right? Okay. So we don't prescribe medicine.
Right. So you don't consider it a complementary.
So I look at it as another health I want to say modality, because I feel like that diminishes it, but another health avenue where we focus on the health and well-being of the person. When a patient comes in, they are a whole person, right? They're coming in with all their different challenges, and it can come from, it's all. I always tell my patients, if we didn't have stress, I wouldn't have had a job as a chiropractor, right? Because we'd be perfect,
right?
So, but we all have stress, and it can come in 3 forms. Whether it's physical stress, right, from the nature of our job, accidents, sports that we played, wear and tear, the way we sleep, posture. It can be emotional stress. Other traumatic events, or just the stress of life, which so many of us do, and then we start carrying our shoulders as earrings. And then there's also the the toxins that are in our environment. All these things put stress on the body, and when they do, the body has to adapt, and it can adapt in a way that's not always the most healthy. And things can shift in our spine, which will also affect the nerve system, which is what we really work through as chiropractors, is helping that nerve system flow and communicate, just like acupuncturists work with the chi and the energy flow. Similar idea in chiropractic is we do the adjustment to help release the stress on that spine and nerve system, so that the body can actually communicate and flow the way it was intended. Nice. Okay. Our bodies are meant to be healthy, and my paradigm, my philosophy is I'm here as a chiropractor was to really help release the interference that was holding that person back from being healthy. And the adjustment was part of it, but we also want to coach and be able to make sure that those patients were doing some healthy things when they weren't in the office, that weren't going to keep recreating the problem in the first place.
Right.
So empowering them. So I started coaching people even back then.
Right. And did you go beyond the physical level and deal with the emotional?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
More so later in the past few years, as I've had my own life experience to pull that out. Because the thing is, I've found so often, especially people, where you're adjusting them, they're eating well, they're doing all the right things, but they're still not having that breakthrough. They're still not releasing and getting. And I'm sure you've seen that in your own work many times. But recognizing that, oh my gosh, there are some serious hurts there that had not been addressed.
Right.
And, I would never say that I was a counselor, because that would be overstepping my, where my boundaries, but certainly recognizing that. So what I would encourage some of them to do is like, hey, maybe you need to start journaling. and start again giving them tools, giving them some accountability, so that, for them to actually take action.
Empower them. Yeah, that's the big thing. That's what, the energy work that we do is about providing people with tools. I don't heal people. They heal themselves. I just provide them with the tools to get there.
Catalyst.
Exactly.
Right? We're the collaborator, but we're not there to save them.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, only they can do that.
Exactly.
Now, you have spoken of Josh, your first husband, and you just alluded to your emotional experiences that you've been through. Would you like to share with our viewers?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good in written form.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
We're going to lead right into that.
Yeah. So Josh, my first husband, which again, I never thought I would be numbering my husbands. But Josh and I, we met my first semester in college, so I was 19 years old when we got together, married at 24. He was a year older. He was my Superman, and just, always he would work hard, he would do marathons, he would do all kinds of stuff. He was definitely all in or wouldn't do it. Anyway, so he also worked as a CIO of a small payrolling company in Towson, so he did a commute from here down to Towson almost every day. So a lot of travel, a lot of work. But always strong, hardly ever got sick, just, again, my Superman.
Right.
However, on July 1st, 2015, he started having belly issues, and he had a lump in his belly that just popped up overnight. And he had to go to the hospital, which for Josh to ever complain about anything, I was like, oh my God, this has got to be serious, right? So I took him in. They had no idea what was going on. And it took him 2 weeks until we got the diagnosis that he had a very rare form of cancer that was growing, doubling in size every couple of days.
Oh my gosh.
And within 2 weeks of them discovering what it was, it had metastasized to his liver. The one silver lining in having that type of fast-growing cancer is that it responded very quickly to chemo. So the chemo that they put him on immediately knocked it down. He did have surgery and had part of his bowel removed, is where it started, and also had his had the cancer, the big main tumor removed, and they noticed that things were starting to go. So he went through 8 rounds of chemo. He changed his diet completely, went on a total paleo, low carb diet. He started sleeping more. He stopped working quite so hard. He just shifted everything. So he was amazing in the sense that he had this very dire diagnosis. It had a prognosis of 4 months. Nobody documented had survived more than 2 years with this type of cancer. And he made a choice. He's like, I'm going to do everything in my power. If it's possible to survive it, I'm going to do it. But if at the end of my life I haven't, I've done everything, I know I've given it my all.
Right.
And that's how he approached it. And it was incredible. Now, he wasn't an emotional man, so he just looked at everything. He was so left brain. He had a massive left brain. He was very logical and really thought things through. So it was a struggle for me when I was emotional, as you can imagine. Because here's my Superman. He's not supposed to have any dents in the armor,
right? And
Achilles heel, if you will. And I remember one time coming home and just being emotional, and he's like, what's going on? Like, well, why are you upset? And I was like, are you kidding me?
Are you serious?
Right. So we had some differences in that regard, but overall he just chose to live, and we took a trip to Spain, just the two of us. He took our youngest on a special ski trip. He had taken our oldest on another one the previous year, and was able to do that. And 5 months later, his scan looked good, and he turned 40, and we just lived. We kind of just continued on our journey. And a few months later, he started having belly pain again, and so he had a CT scan, and we found out that it was all over. And they tried a new chemo. And I remember we went to the hospital. He did 42 push-ups. He's like, I'm going to keep strong. I mean, I was just like, here's this man riddled with cancer, and he's doing push-ups in the hospital floor. And again, he was my Superman. Yeah. And he just went at it. And it was absolutely amazing. And it was so comforting for me, because I'm seeing this man not falling apart I mean, he was just like, I'm doing what I can. And not woe is me, not a victim at any point did he ever express that. And I know that that was just who he was. He wasn't hiding. Through that process, he also started to develop a faith, which he did not have before. And he actually, when the cancer came back and they found that it wasn't responding, his doctor, his oncologist, who she was fabulous, she looked at us and said, we're out of options. That's when I had to make that phone call to ask what hospice was. When I was 39, I'm like, what? No 39-year-old is prepared to figure out what hospice, companies are available in Pennsylvania. So we went through that and got him set up. And I remember the day after, it was April 15th, 2016. And the day after, we sat down and told the boys. And I will say that was one of the most amazing human experiences, where the four of us sat in our bed upstairs. We're still in the same home. And we told them what was going on and held on to each other in this beautiful way that was like, it was almost like our souls made a pact, like we are always connected no matter what. And it was so painful, but one of the most beautiful human experiences I've ever had.
Wow.
And
How old were your boys then?
Carter was 8 and Justin was 11.
Wow.
And they embraced it, and they demonstrated such beautiful grace, because they would, that day I remembered, we had the hospice nurse come in and just talk to us to figure out what our options were, and Justin and Carter would go run outside and play with the neighbors, and then come in and grieve a little bit, and then go run out and play, and like they were just so beautiful at just how to express it, like
allowing themselves
open
to
it,
do it.
feel it, and then just be a kid,
right?
So they were such amazing models.
Wow.
They're not anxious kids. They just incredible how they manage all of it and continue. But so we went through that, and then a couple weeks after that, a week later, after Josh had gone to hospice, he had texted me while I was at work, because he kept telling me, "And go to work." And I only worked 3 days a week. At this point, I was only working half days, and it was kind of nice to go there and not focus on cancer. And his parents and his brother spent some quality, beautiful time with him. So it really worked. We figured out a good synergy, right? Yeah. And he texted me. He's like, "Ange, is there somebody that you know that could come and baptize me?" And that afternoon, the right man did, a pastor. I asked him, he agreed to come to our house the next day, and he was baptized in our bathtub. Wow. And he just came out of that water like he was just seriously reborn. Like he cleansed. He just had this incredible peace. And when people would come talk to him thinking that they were there to comfort him or console them, they ended up leaving that enlightened.
He comforted them.
He did. And it wasn't just like, it's okay. Like he never sugarcoated it. He was just like, hey, this is where it is. And he looked at it with such an interesting, curious mind versus, again, the victim. Right. I mean, it was just absolutely fascinating and inspiring and giving, and very peace giving too. So he did pass on May 11th of 2016, but it was at home. I was there and his brother, and it was peaceful. I mean, it was absolutely excruciating, but pain-wise in your heart. But it was, I mean, he had said his goodbyes. He had written letters to the boys and his parents and his brother. He had written me a 4-page document of all the things I needed to do after he passed, including his obituary. Wow. He wanted to make sure I was going to be successful in life, and he told me and his family, he gave me a whole list of things. He told me, he's like, all right, Ange, now make sure you don't drown your sorrows in wine, which I didn't. In fact, I think I drink less than I did before. He was like, just make sure you don't get so busy talking to other people, you don't focus on the kids, and make sure you take care of yourself, and all these different instructions,
Right. He's your Superman.
Yeah, he is my Superman.
He's your Superman.
So make sure, yes. So he really took care of a lot of things. So it really took a lot of the stress that some people really struggle with after losing, a significant person in their life. Those were things I didn't have to worry about.
What a gift.
Huge.
What a gift.
Huge.
Wow.
That's the,
And that's
silver lining
something that you don't think
No.
you don't think about.
No.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now you write about this
I do.
in your book. You are now a published
I
author.
am now a published author. I published my book last July, which I laugh because I hated writing papers. Like, I would rather have a problem set any day in college. And then I ended up writing a book, Now, it's not a super long book because I'm like, I get bored easily too. So I didn't want to get caught up. But it just essentially, it starts from when, again, what I just outlined, from when Josh first gets sick, in July. And it chronicles that whole journey and that summer afterwards as I'm managing being a widow at 39 with 2 kids. And it chronicles until the start of the next chapter of life.
And where did that take you?
So that took me to a place I wasn't expecting quite so soon.
Well, what's the name of your book?
My book is called Beauty in the Brokenness, One Woman's Voice.
Excellent. Now Jen will put that in the comments.
So you can find that on Amazon, and also one of the websites called Dr Angela Merrick.com also has another resource. So, so that book was powerful, and I can get to that in a moment. But it chronicles that summer after Josh passed, and figuring out kind of like that whole single mom thing, the grief thing, and what I found is grief looked different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and how is that?
Well, I guess I had this preconceived notion, like so many of us have these expectations of how we should be and act and such. A lot of it comes from the movies, right? I thought, wow, I guess if you're not sitting in a corner incapacitated and non-functional, clearly you aren't demonstrating your undying love.
You did not love him enough.
I did not love him enough.
You did not love him enough.
And I'm not suffering enough to prove my love to the world and myself. And I realized that was not my experience. And also, as we're thinking about Josh and who he was and what he always wanted for me, which he was always sincere in this and was me to be happy. And if I was that person sitting in the corner incapacitated, I know he would come back and haunt me and kick me out of my funk. He would let me know in one way or the other. He was very strong-minded in many ways, and I know he would find a way. But it wasn't, I just realized. So again, it was so beautiful in the sense of we tied all our loose ends. We said our goodbyes. He found peace in his faith. I trusted in that. So he also told everybody, his family and my parents and such, that not to get mad at me because it won't be long until I most likely would be with somebody else.
He told them.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I got full. I mean, Josh was that kind of guy. Even when he was alive, he's like, if you'd be happier with somebody else, let me know and we'll figure it out.
Wow.
That's not how I work it out. But
interesting.
He was just very. He just sincerely wanted me to be happy. He was that kind of a guy. Wow. And it was who he was. And I always show him I wouldn't be so cool about it because the roles were reversed. Man, we're connected.
You cannot expect that from me.
No, you will not happen. Definitely not. That's not how I.
You are happy with me, operate. And that is
exactly. No, not that I needed that type of. Anyway, so, as I am processing everything and my new normal and such like that, 3 months after Josh dies, I go to one of his best friend's wedding, and I realized I hadn't been to a wedding by myself, I don't know, since I was much younger.
Right.
And I didn't realize how hard it was going to be, but I'm I need to go. And this woman that was getting married was a dear friend, and she was such a dear friend to Josh and I, and I absolutely had to be there. There was no way I was not going to be there. And what was so beautiful about that night is, so often I'm in my head. I'm just, many of us are, right? And that night was magical in a sense that I just felt like an open channel. I didn't feel hindered by my thoughts or my beliefs or preconceived notions or any expectations. I was there to fully just be and embrace it. And I remember, during the wedding, I was dying. I felt the excruciating pain. I was so happy for these two people coming together and seeing the love that they shared, but also on the other side of that sword was the pain of missing Josh and missing that love that he and I shared for 20 years. We were together 20 years. And as I watched that, somebody came up to me and grabbed my hand and just held it. It was another woman I had met earlier that evening. She knew my story, and she just knew intuitively to hold my hand, which was a lifeline during that ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, I just remember I had a couple glasses of wine too to enjoy the evening.
Nothing wrong with a couple glasses.
No, definitely. So we enjoyed and went dancing. I danced and enjoyed, my friends and these friends that were friends with Josh too.
Mm-hmm.
And the bride's sister was a good friend, worked with Josh. And that's how they became good friends, and they ended up being running partners. And then Sarah, the sister, she was also running with them, and just became this wonderful friendship that they all had. And I got to be a part of that as well. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful connection for everybody. And I would take moments when I needed to and step away and just kind of feel the moment, and somebody would come sit with me and just check on me. And it was I just felt so well cared for.
Did you learn that from your sons?
Did I learn that from my sons?
You said your sons would come in and grieve, and then they go play with the neighborhood boys.
Apparently I did. That's very good observation. I mean, it was subconscious. I didn't realize it. So when we got to the end of the night, I thought I was going to be the first one to leave. I ended up being the last.
It was a good night.
It was a good night, but just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And then there happened to be this tall guy who happened to be a friend of the family, but he was transporting people to and from the wedding to the hotel and back. And it was just something he did as a side job, and he was helping out and such. And we just started talking, and it just flowed easily. And we were just talking. He was sharing about his son and his passion of football and coaching, and I was sharing my story. And he already knew a little bit of it as I started talking, because we had mutual friends. Mm-hmm. So one of Josh's, the woman that got married, her and her sister were good friends with Josh. Her sister worked with Josh. Her husband and this gentleman also were friends from college. Okay. So it was this crazy kind of weird web of how people knew each other, but yet Josh and this man didn't know each other, so they never had met. So we just started talking, and went home and everything else. And the next morning there was a brunch in the area, and for all the people that were at the wedding, and he was invited. And not ironically, as fate would have it, the seat next to me was vacant, and he sat down, and I was like, oh God, I don't need this. And here, single man, single woman, I hadn't been single since I was 19. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with that, right? But I felt this energy. I'm like, no. And I'm trying to move my body.
Shut it down.
Right? Subtly trying to move by. I'm like, okay, I know I haven't been single, for very long, but I'm like, is this normal? This is weird. And I don't even know what that is. So anyway, we get up to leave at the end, and he and I ended up talking and enjoyed the conversation. I certainly didn't want to leave, but I need to go home and get my children. And so I went around to say goodbye to everybody, hugged everybody, and went up to him, and I was like, see you later. And took off. And the next day I'm like, should I? So what was interesting, I was driving home that day, and I saw these two white birds cross over the highway. And at first I'm like, is that kind of a sign of Josh and I? And then I was like, no, I think that happens in movies. That doesn't happen to me.
That's crazy.
That doesn't happen to me. That's just ridiculous. So I go home and kind of ponder, and then I'm like, well, maybe I'll just send a Facebook friend request. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm not trying to open any doors I'm not supposed to. I don't understand. I just was intrigued, right?
Right.
So I didn't know what I was doing. Again. Oh my God! Talk about being a teenage girl all over again. Except now this time I'm almost 40, right?
Yes.
With 2 children and a practice, all these responsibilities,
all these things,
and this grief thing that, by the way, is still going on.
Yes.
I was a hot mess. So
what am I doing? Is this okay?
And he responds right away with a message, and shared how he was intrigued by our conversation, and just was very complimentary, and it kind of ensued this conversation. The beautiful thing was he lived 2 hours away. And the reason why I say it was beautiful is it gave us an opportunity to be able to talk. And as he was going through his own challenge through a divorce, we were able to communicate on a level of if you will, grief and loss
Mm-hmm.
of what we thought our life was going to look like, and now on this new trajectory and adapting to our new normal. And it was a huge bonding opportunity, and it was so amazing. So I obviously didn't tell my kid. It was, for a while. So after I put that in bed, we get on the phone and we would talk for hours, and we had to finally give ourselves curfew.
You going into work looking all
dragging.
Gosh,
I was so tired. Oh my God, I was so tired. And the whole process, and then I couldn't eat for a while. I'm like, what is this? Because I was all kind of crazy giddy about this and grieving Josh, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be doing this.
What are people going to think?
What are people going to think? That people pleaser, those expectations. They must think that, oh my gosh, she can't even be by herself for more than 3 months. Oh my gosh, does she not love Josh?
Right.
How is she dishonoring? What are you doing for the kids? What about everybody else? And So I was absolutely in a tailspin.
Wow. You were feeling all the feels.
Oh my gosh, right. So my book doesn't go to this part, so that's why I need to write a sequel. So, but I need to find a way to manage that in a way that is that makes sense. But anyway, maybe it shouldn't make sense. But it was really crazy. And then, but the thing that helped me, and so this man's name is Paul, that made it so powerful was that he gave me space to grieve, and it was a safe space. Where I could talk about it, and I knew he wasn't going to be show up jealous or weird or whatever. It was always, he just accepted me just as I was, and completely, and just trusted my judgment on things.
That's beautiful.
Which was completely new.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That was new for me. So I fell in love with him. And I found that I can grieve my first husband and honor him and love somebody else too, and that doesn't take away from the first. It's just different in some ways, more profound, because we've had loss and you appreciate it so much more. So we went through that process, that journey, and now, and about 9 months later, he asked me to be his wife in front of our 3 children. Right before we went to go see Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It wasn't the most romantic, but it was very family friendly.
There you go.
Which is really what we're about.
Yeah.
And I said yes, and we didn't want to wait how many months or years you're supposed to.
Whatever somebody has deemed appropriate.
Yeah, we had been apart, and then he moved up here, and we got married, and there's a lot of transition that happens, but recognizing when we have peace in who we are and we show up our best version, we can manage those ups and downs and not fall apart. And it's definitely been a lot of transition, a lot of processing, but it has been so powerful and so empowering too. And I'm finding.
I was just going to say, do you ever think you would have gotten to that place if it hadn't been for you losing Josh?
It wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that feels, that I know Josh is in this beautiful place, and I trust that. And oh my gosh, it makes, I miss him, but it makes my heart so happy, because I know, he's good. He's really good.
And he's really happy that you're happy.
He's cheering us on.
Yeah.
And I know he, on a soul level, needed to find his faith on this lifetime. And he and I went where we needed to go, and he was releasing me before he passed so I could move forward and experience a life I wouldn't have otherwise experienced. And my commitment is to fully embrace life and live for all that it can, not only honoring what he and I have been through and who he was, but the journey in a whole different dimension. I didn't realize how superficially I was living until I went through all this.
Right. So is that what inspired you to become a life coach?
Yeah, part of it.
Part of it?
So part of it, it was definitely the trigger, the final trigger.
Okay.
I've had a coach myself since, my current coach since 2009.
Okay.
And he's helped me through this whole process, starting a business, having little people, because Josh worked a lot. So I did a lot. I was, kind of in charge of all the logistics.
Right.
And so managing that balance of starting a business, running a business, growing a business, raising children, and still managing the home and running everybody to here and there. And then also, and then when Josh got sick, and you know, all these different things, he was right there guiding me, collaborating with me, supporting me. He was not only my coach, but he became like an older brother, a friend, a confidant, mentor, counselor, kind of everything. And held me accountable and held space for me during that whole process of my best version of what he saw in me. And I realized as I've gone through this past year, you know, since getting remarried, that I have a support structure, that if I want to go in a different direction, I can do that and have that support. And it started opening up my heart that I want to work soul to soul with people. I want to get in there and I want to hold space for their best version and what I see in them that they may not be ready to or afraid to, and help encourage them, inspire them into action to step into that, into their power.
And empower them, yeah.
Yeah. So inspiring.
That's fantastic. So you are going to stop practicing.
Yep, in 2 weeks. Actually, a week and a half will be my last day in the office. I have my associate, Dr. Sam, who is awesome. He's been, and I'll tell you one thing that has been really powerful. So he joined our practice right during the time Josh was in hospice care. And I will never forget how, you know, I shared with him, you know, what was going on and everything. And he's like, I will do whatever I can to help you. And the sincerity that came from him towards me, it was a lifeline. And I just knew I wanted him to be a part of my practice. And so he joined, and he's been growing and evolving so beautifully, and I'm so proud of him. And caring for more people, and so I'm really, I'm so excited to be able to hand over some of the reins to him as he takes over the patients while I step back. I'll still be owner, and then go into this other realm, if you will, while I'm still able to support and mentor and consult on a behind the scenes area. So I still get to coach.
You're still coaching there.
Yeah, still coaching there, and still having that influence impact, but really trying to empower him in his own vibe so that he can continue to create and expand and evolve.
That's fantastic. So what is your new venture? You have a new
business. New venture, yep. It's called
venture?
Shatterbox Coaching. So if you imagine your box of beliefs, shattering them. Now what do you do, right? Because I didn't realize how small my box was until I went through this process. I had a lot of self-imposed beliefs, and I realized that they weren't true. And by continuing to believe them was not serving who I needed to be. And so I was able to shatter some of them, and I have many more to shatter. And I wanted to empower other people through releasing their own beliefs that have held them back from expressing who they are. You know, I mean, I believe God has a purpose for each and every one of us, and our purpose is not to just survive. No. I have seen so many, especially women, on my chiropractic table completely lost, completely feeling overwhelmed, not supported, just on that hamster wheel and just getting by. And that is not
And
acceptable.
it manifests in a physical way.
Oh, absolutely.
It always does.
Absolutely.
It always does.
And I just want to work with those people that are ready to transform.
Right. That's fantastic. Okay, there was you talked about 4 dimensions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 4 dimensions in my coaching.
Yes. Tell us about your 4 dimensions.
So I tell my clients, like, it's kind of like you imagine 4 buckets of life, right? So we have our health bucket, right? Our health and wellness. We also have our spiritual connectedness bucket, whatever paradigm people operate from. You know, I'm a very spiritual person. Some people have different, religions that they subscribe to, but I really like, how can you best be connected to who you are and whatever higher power you believe in.
Nice.
That connection. And then the other bucket or dimension is relationships, right? Our relationships are familial, our, marriages, our, people close to us. How are we showing up for them? And then finally, our professional, our mission, our business, what does that look like?
Okay.
And so what I like to coach in those realms is create goals and then create actions to support that. Now, sometimes we hit goals, sometimes we don't. But when we're in the process, we're always growing and transforming and working through self-limiting beliefs and shattering them to realize that new level of consciousness.
All right. Wow. That's a big order.
There's a lot
That's
of
a big
parts
order.
with that.
Yeah, there's
so,
a lot of stuff.
So what I'm finding with my clients is, everybody is unique, and that's what I love. It's so exciting, right? And I'm sure you see that, right? Like everybody needs different types of care, of different types of, I don't want to say holding, but support. Right?
Absolutely.
Some people need more communication, talk, or some just say, okay, just give me an action, let me follow through, I'll report back.
Right.
Yep. And so it's really interesting. I'm really having fun as I'm just getting started with my clients, is seeing what works for some and what doesn't work for others, and just being willing to be open to, okay, I'm just going to have to shift. It kind of reminds me when I would take care of babies in my office. Oh my gosh, like babies, like they don't read the rule book, right? Some will cry, some will poop, some will just look at you. And you just have to do this dance, babies and toddlers, do this dance to get them, in a place where you can adjust them and help them and, and that type of thing. So I kind of feel like that, it's interesting. It's a bit of a dance of finding what is the best way to come alongside each individual and support them where they need. Not fix them, not enable them, but support them into that inspired action for them to transform.
And in order to do that, you hold space.
Absolutely. That is powerful. Oh my gosh, there's powerful. So much fun energy. But then I realized, after a few hours, I'm like, okay, we need to shut it down for a little while, recover. Yeah.
Take care of you.
Yeah, go take a walk, go do something.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. How did the process of the 4 dimensions of life help guide you to your dream life now? Are these things that you use to get to where you are now?
Absolutely.
And now you're sharing them?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you've lived them.
Yep. So my coach, Dr. Troy, he is the one that kind of modeled this for me. Okay. And really for all of his clients created these kind of 4 dimensions and have us to work on these different targets in each realm. And so every day we his clients, he holds us accountable for taking action in all 4 of those buckets. Okay. So every morning I have a routine. So in the morning I get up, and so in my health wellness bucket I make sure I eat my smoothie and I move my body. And most mornings I get up and go to the gym at 6 a.m. If I don't do it then, it just doesn't happen. So I do that. And then the other is I do my meditation every morning, and then I journal. Okay. And that's my kind of spiritual connectedness. And then our relationships, I send a text or write a note to each of the boys and my husband. Nice. It's really cool when they start responding back. Still waiting on the teenagers. But.
My daughter never responds.
I know, right? But you know what? We're still putting the good intention out.
We're putting it out
right?
there. Exactly.
Right? And it's a gift. You got to put it out there. Don't expect it back.
Right on.
Maybe in 10 years. So anyway, and then the final one is in my professionally, I read every morning something. So I love mindset work, so I'm working on that. And then I put something on Instagram or some sort of project it out there because it essentially reinforces what you've been learning.
Okay, so my question to you is, what if you have a client that doesn't have their own business, doesn't have a career in business? What if they're a stay-at-home mom? Would you coach them?
I would, depending on where they want to go. Okay. Right? Depending on how motivated they are to make a transformation, whatever that might look like. Because a lot of times, some of the stay-at-home moms, they're looking for maybe doing some other purpurposeful, maybe it's create other moms groups or support systems or networks and stuff like that. It could definitely look like that. But I will say my main avatar, if you will, or people niche, if you will, are mostly professional women. Okay. And men too. But the majority are women that I've been working with so far. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody.
That's what I was going to say. I feel that you would talk to anyone.
I would talk to anybody and see if it's the right connection. And so really what it looks like currently, what I do with my with anybody, I just say, hey, let's just have a conversation. And so what we do is we set up a 1 hour, I just say it's a complimentary 1 hour coaching consultation. And we just kind of see what's going on in their life. where do they want to go? What's keeping them from that? What can we potentially do? Some actions, some strategies, and if they're ready to have some significant levels of accountability and really want to dive in deep and need some extra support, then we open up the conversation to have a coaching relationship.
Moving further. Okay. So
But
it's a free opportunity to see if you all resonate with one another.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
And so far I've attracted some awesome clients. It is so fun. I love it.
Now, how can someone reach out to you for that consult?
They can reach out to me. They can email me. Dr. Angela at Shatter, like TTER, not shadow. People want to say shadow. Shatterboxcoaching.com. They can Facebook message me. I'm on Facebook. Shatterbox Coaching is also a Facebook page.
Right.
So those are some great ways to reach out, and I'd be happy to. I just recently had somebody reach out and just email me and say, hey, I'm looking for this. Great. We set up a time. And what's so cool about coaching is I can do it anywhere. All we use is we use a technology called Zoom, which is like Skype. You just get on your computer or your phone, and we just have a face-to-face over technology conversation, which is great because it's so much better than just hearing voice. I like to see the facial.
It's nice to be able to see.
Yeah, huge.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and you can kind of see when they're lying, whether it's to themselves or not. You know when they're like, yeah, I'm committed. You can just see in their face, they're like, yeah, okay, no.
Sure I am.
So in holding that space is also holding them accountable to who they really are, right? Or the reality of where they are, so that we can know where those challenges are and push through them. Versus, okay, that's fine. I'm not. We're here to make changes.
You're not here to coddle, right?
No, if we're gonna make a change, because again, this world has so much stress in it. There's so much depravity we feel, or I see, and it needs hope. And my mission is to bring hope through that dark.
Excellent. Now, what in all this work, what do you find the core goal is? In order for someone to shift their life and change their life, what is the number one thing they have to be able to do?
Be coachable.
Okay.
Be coachable and committed to themselves.
Nice.
Be willing to invest.
And value themselves.
In their ability, or, in their transformation. They have to believe in themselves on some level. Even if they don't believe they can do it right then, they have to believe that.
Be open to the possibility.
It's really essentially, it's buying into possibility for themselves.
Possibility. Taking away expectations and limits. Yeah,
once we do that, we can do
we're limitless.
anything,
Exactly.
Right? And it sounds so good in theory, and then when you try to test it, you're like, oh,
it's hard work.
It's a lot of intentional work, right? We have a lot of fears.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of self-limiting beliefs. And so I read this recently. I've been reading a lot of Steve Chandler's work for anybody that has looking for books. One's called Wealth Warrior and Time Warrior. These are two different books about him. And one of the things that's quoted in there is like, fear is the absence of love.
I've heard that. I like that.
Love that.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Oh my gosh.
That's really what it is.
Yeah. I mean, how simple.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, gosh,
simple.
when I'm in fear, I'm saying no to myself and I'm not expressing love. And isn't that what we're here to do?
Yeah. In my sessions for the past couple of weeks, a lot of things that have been coming up revolve around that. It's, you've come to a point now. Yeah. Whatever has happened in the past has happened. But now you're at a point. Are you going to choose love or are you going to choose fear? Which one are you going to feed?
And guess what? You can choose differently. Right? You don't have to stay in that same cul-de-sac.
That loop.
Which I have been in many times.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's day to day, hour to hour, depending on what's going on. Exactly.
Yes.
We have a lot of new viewers that are new to spirituality and the self-work. What words of wisdom would you give them as they're beginning their journey?
I think being open. Be open to the possibility of new ideas. I think sometimes when we're getting into it, there's the resistance can come from the beliefs that we tell ourselves. The self-talk. Beliefs come from parents, teachers, preachers, and that doesn't mean that has to be the belief you continue to keep fulfilling. And I think when you start realizing that that's not serving and who you are and your purpose on this earth, it can be really freeing. So not being so attached to those beliefs and being open and I mean, it's a process, just like anything else, right? We peel back a layer, we realize there's a whole new world underneath, right?
Exactly.
There's a whole new work to be done. So it's a never-ending process. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about life. But being in that process and being intentional. And I have written up on my whiteboard, like, take one tiny step each day. If as long as it's something, you're moving in that direction of that evolution. It can be so powerful.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having us in your home this evening.
Great.
And,
amongst the chaos of our 3 boys and 3 dogs.
It's been fantastic.
Which they were clearly pretty quiet.
I was going to say, they were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you next week, and don't forget you're awesome.
Yay.